Rafael, I'm going to start with you because I want to know, can you tell me where will we meet your character at the start of season two versus where we're going to meet him at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we're coming back to the show 9 months after the end of the last season. And so really what's going on with Miles is he's been in San Quentin for 9 months. And so we're starting with someone who's sort of in a very different mental health space than before. And season one, we don't really get a big window into who Miles is. We're really focused on Ashley and everyone outside, but this season we get a little bit of a deeper dive into how he's doing and how that affects the family. And by the end, I can't spoil the ending, but a lot of shit goes down, and Ashley and Miles gotta figure out how they're going to proceed in their life now that they've this inevitable thing of him being sent away and the effect it's had on his family is gonna make or break them. And so I think that's the exciting question of season two is what's gonna happen to their family now that this thing has happened and it's real.
Absolutely. And for you, David, change is inevitable, but this show does a magnificent job of really humanizing those people who are affected by incarceration. How will we see this continue to unfold in season two? And what are some other themes that you're excited for fans to see unfold?
Yeah, well, I think, season one was really about the beginning of this process. It was about the shock of having a loved one removed from the family and being incarcerated. This season is sort of about the continuation. It's about the stasis. How do you persevere as a family after we've sort of established that we are making the choice to persevere as a family, right? And so that's kind of where we meet them, and it brings up a whole bunch of new, interesting complications. But we also, get to drop some interesting sort of smaller tidbits about how various people deal with that, right? So it's cool. There was a lot of just like good, interesting research and a lot of good like folks we talked to in order to kind of get a handle on what that's like for some people and be able to infuse Ashley and Miles and Sean's journey with a lot of that, That was great. And then as far as everything else I'm excited for is like, it's a wild season. We really, I think, stretched out a lot. The weird stuff got weirder. The funny stuff got funnier. And our actors are just like so dialed in and so grounded. That's honestly like my favorite part is getting to just see and how everybody, just as a person who loves actors and acting, like, watching what our cast does with this season is really, really thrilling.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan because I love like dark humor. I like find things that should not be funny, extremely funny, or find like the comedy of it all. So I love the approach to that in Blindspotting. And my last question is for both of y'all. I know that you guys have been at this for a long time as friends, but how does that relationship with you guys being friends for so long, how does that affect the creative process with your approach to this series? Because it's something like we've never seen before. Like even the touches of movement in those tough to handle scenes and moments. How do you guys kind of play off of each other for that creative process? And we can start with you, Rafael.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we just be juiced to work on shit together. So I think that like off top is just like, that's the bag is like, I think we just like intuitively just fire each other up and we start talking about art because we kind of get high on the same supply. And then, we always talk about the ship runs on enthusiasm. So when like if I kick out an idea or Diggs kicks out an idea and I see the light bulb go off in his head and then he starts throwing out something, like we know more so than I really know about anything else in life. I know if we start running that ball, like I got a thing that I love and he loves it too and now he's throwing on it, like whatever that is, that shit is fire. Like there's an audience for whatever that idea is, because if the two of us fuck with it, like more people are gonna fuck with it. And so I think the through line for all of, not only just Blindspotting, but the music, the other scripts we work on, the other projects we work on, is like he's in the car right now, you see his ass driving home, he's driving to my neighborhood, I can't fucking wait. Like, like we're gonna kick it tonight. That's gonna be lit. Like I work with my best friend. Like I'm gonna see him at the job later. That's tight. And then when we get to the job, we're gonna be watching people watch our show, and I promise you, we're gonna start pitching each other ideas midway through, because that's just like, again, like we just ramp each other up in that way. And I think there's a lot of there's a lot of validation in it. Like when he has an idea and I fuck with that idea, that's a stamp. I got an idea and he fucks with it, that's a stamp. You know, and that's all you could ever hope for in your artistic life is somebody to like tell you when you're onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard post. I mean, it's just like, you know, that's it. It's the you know, sort of person I think is like the smartest, most talented, like best creator in the world. If I have an idea that guy fucks with, like, great. And it's a good idea. Then it's a worthwhile idea. And it like gives me all of the fucking I need to not listen to everybody else who's telling me it's a bad idea, which is like really particularly useful in this business because you get a lot of no's. But all I really need is one yes if it comes from Rafa, you know? So.
That's it. If Diggs tells me that shit is fire, I'm like, nah, they just don't get it.
I love that. I love that. And the synergy is definitely reflected on screen. So hats off to another amazing season. And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks. Yeah.
And so I want to know, where will we meet your character Ashley at the start of season 2 versus where we will be left with her by the end of the season?
Ooh, let's try to do this without giving too much away. We arrive with Ashley on a very, very high anxiety because this is 9 months later from when the last time you saw them. And she has a lot of pent-up feelings that she has not dealt with. And at the same time, everybody is telling her that she's not fun. So she is trying to find a sense of self and who she is without Miles. And that's really hard to do because if you're not dealing with all of these traumatic experiences and these feelings, you know, if you're not actually truly looking at yourself and dealing with yourself, there's no really real and positive way to get back to yourself. And so I think she kind of covers that with drinking, with meeting new friends that bring her down kind of the wrong path. And so you really see her struggling. I think in the first season, it was trying to keep her family together. And this season, it's really her biggest enemy is her, I think. Feeling like she has to do this again on her own, you know. She's not really revealing truly how she feels. And I think the only time she really does that is her secrets to the audience of when she goes into heightened verse. And so I think she goes down a little bit of a spiral. She goes down a little bit of a dark path, but, you know, always with Ashley and, you know, eventually the support of family. She ends up finding her way, you know, as she always does, because she is a very smart girl and she does try her best, I think. But I think in the end, I don't want to give too much away, but I think she finds her footing. I think in the beginning, she's really struggling. She's very like up in the air. There's no groundedness about her. And I think in the first season, there was always a bit of this, like, she was very responsible. You know, all of this was happening, but she was still grounded, you know, and, you know, right off the bat in the second season, she's not grounded at all. You know, she's off the rails. She's really trying to keep it together. But as soon as she starts getting honest and, you know, really revealing how painful this is for her because she's in a lot of pain, I think that's when things start to heal and people start to really understand where she's coming from. But you know, in the journey of the bad paths, it's still funny, it's still chaotic, it's still literally a wild ride, a roller coaster ride, and a Western ride, all of that stuff.
Absolutely. And you know, you mentioned finding her own way, but what qualities from your character Ashley, maybe if any, helped you grow in your own personal life?
Ashley and I share is kind of like, not this doubt, but just like this show playing Ashley stretches me as an artist. I think if you are involved in the show, like a lot is asked of you. And you know, I go to Rafa and Diggs all the time and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like you guys gave me, you know, a verse last minute. I don't know if I can like pull this off. And, you know, and they always turn around to me and they're like, yeah, you got this. And then I magically end up doing whatever it is that I said that I couldn't do. And so I just think the show, I always come out as a better creative, a better artist. And, you know, playing Ashley sheds light on that. You know, every time I feel like I can't, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. You know, it's just like, yes, you can, girl. This show requires you to study very hard, but also, you know, be emotionally free and it's okay if you fall on your face, just get back up again. You know, you'll be supported. So.
Yeah, and you're totally killing it. So thank you so much for your time here today, Jasmine.
Thank you so much.
I want to know where will we meet your character Rainey at the top of season 2 versus where we will leave with her by the end of the season?
Well, a lot happens. I think these characters all start where the reality is sinking in, that a central member of their family is gone. And how do you have a birthday party for the young boy? And how do you tolerate your other family members? And who's going to get to visit? And all those things are like super raw right at the beginning of the season. And then that kind of just gets more and more intense until the end when the whole thing turns in a way that I hope people get to see.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about this show is the approach that it has on the many families that are affected by incarceration. Why do you think that it's so important to have this art imitating life for those watching at home?
Well, I mean, the show is about the fact that for every single person in prison, there's how many people around them, how many daughters and sons and mothers and wives and siblings and friends are affected, you know? And so they made this beautiful movie about this place and the effect of what happened to David's character in the first episode. And then I remember hearing they were going to make the TV show, and I thought, it's a bad idea. They did it. But then they told me, well, actually, this is going to center around Jasmine's character. And I went, they're so smart. They're so smart to give the other people in this person's life a voice and real stories.
Yeah, and speaking of those real stories, I just love the uplifting of all of the women in this show. Mm-hmm. Why is that such an important factor? And did that play a factor in you becoming a part of the series?
Yeah, that's a reason to make the show, you know, that's a reason to make the show. And you can feel when you're offered something like, is there a reason to make this right now? And there really is a reason to make this show. The fact that they chose to do it with humor that's as, you know, broad as a funny sitcom, and heartbreak that's, you know, almost too much to take, and dance and spoken word, that's their style, to just be generous with art in their work. And the show really does that. Even more than the movie, I think they would agree.
Absolutely. And just lastly here, I wanted to know your character, Rainey, what has she taught you any major life lessons over the past 2 seasons? And if so, what?
Well, I mean, I think I got the part and I thought, oh, I've got to work really hard to figure out who this woman is and how she dresses and what she looks like and how she behaves. And then I got there and put the clothes on and I was like, oh, she's me. Not really a lot of difference. So I think I'm more like her than I realized at first. She might be a little louder, but I definitely relate to like trying to keep the spirits of the family up, even though hard things are happening. I definitely relate to like a fierce protective feeling about your kids, and in Rainey's case, her grandson. So I related to a lot of it.
Yeah, and I know that so many people watching can relate as well. So thank you so much for your time, Helen.
Thank you.
And actually, let's just get started, because your character, Trish, is like the flower who blooms from a concrete. And she's also the ultimate entrepreneur, if you will. How will we see her continue to blossom in season 2?
I mean, she's growing. She's constantly growing. She's made mistakes and she's learning from those mistakes. So we're just going to see her journey of being a more empathetic and vulnerable person rather than an aggressive person with a mask on. And I mean, with the situations that she gets put in, the audience will be able to see these different layers to her that they may not have been able to, pick up on in season 1. And that's really what I'm most excited about. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. And what are some qualities about Trish that kind of spill over to who Jaylen is? And has she taught you anything?
Okay. A part of Trish's personality that spills over to me, I feel like I spilled over to her in a way. Like with my facial expressions, like at the end of a line, or like making certain noises, and because you can see everything on my face exactly how I'm feeling, even when I'm trying to control it, it has gotten me in trouble. And with Trish, I was just like, why don't I just act how I want to act on a daily basis when somebody says something crazy? And I do, but Trish has really taught me to be more comfortable in my skin. And prior to playing Trish, I'd be a little bit more self-conscious with my body and more self-conscious with who I am as a woman and like the different quirks that I have. And Trish is so unapologetic that she made me realize, like, girl, you are okay. Like, you're cool, and you're fun. And, whoever likes you, and whoever doesn't, they're just mad. And really that, like, she's just made me a more confident woman. And she's so unapologetically herself, where I'm like, I'm jealous of you. Like, you're not shy right now. And she's not. And that's what I love about her. And it's really fun to be able to exercise that side of me, because I get to take it out into the daily world. And I feel like I've become a more open and talkative person. And rather than having like this mask on whenever I'm doing interviews or whenever I'm on set, of being like, hi, yes, absolutely, indeed. I feel like I'm like, well, why not just show people who I am? Because Trish does every single day and people love it. So if they love it, why wouldn't they love me too?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're able to incorporate that into your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And I also
and therapy.
Okay, yeah, therapy changed my whole life, so I get it. And I also wanted to know for Blindspotting season 2, I wanted to know if you could describe this season in a word or a sentence. What would you have to say, like, without giving too much away?
If I could describe it in a word or a sentence, dang, what have people been saying? I don't want to say nothing lame. No, I would have to say it's daring. This season is daring. And I say that because they're doing some off the wall stuff and some off the wall situations that you're going to be able to see if you haven't already. And I mean, with the Western to Too Short to E40, like, come on, not the icons showing up. So I mean, they're pushing an envelope, and I'm glad it's being pushed because I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah, and lastly, speaking of having never seen anything like this series, one thing that I love in particular is the approach that you all take to incarceration, the issue with incarceration that we have here in America. Could you tell me, why is this so important for viewers at home watching to see that kind of art imitate life? Because,
Black and brown people, unfortunately, we, have not had the best opportunities in America, and we don't have that privilege from, back in the 50s and the 40s, where their grandparents were allowed to own houses and, own businesses, where they allowed their generations after them to get ahead. We unfortunately weren't able to have that. So I feel like it's showing a perspective of, sex workers or, people who are incarcerated. We're just operating on survival mode. And I think that is so misconstrued in the media for like, oh, it's gang violence, they don't care about anybody. But in reality, it's like they're trying to survive and get money for their family. And, every sex worker that I know is paying for school because she didn't have it like that, or he didn't have it like that. And I'm hoping that it changes the perspective and the narrative on what it means to be a Black person in America. And I'm hoping that it shows and it sheds light on, you know, maybe I shouldn't have looked over this person because they looked like X, Y, and Z. Maybe I should have hired them because, because Trish is a hustler and she gets the money, and that's all she wants to do is make money and make it out the hood and take her family out of the hood. And I feel like that will open the doors for hopefully people who do look like Trish and people who watch the show to be like, you know what? I'm gonna call that girl back and give her a job, because I watch Trish on TV and she's a good person. She just wants to make it.
Yeah, so kudos to you for lending a voice to so many people who need it. So thank you for your time, Jaylen.
Thank you.
I really want to know from you, in the second season of Blindspotting, where are we going to find Janelle at the top of the season versus where we find her at the end?
The interesting thing is we kind of find her in the same, like, you know, in season 1, she was very mysterious and guarded. And it's kind of like we're picking up in the same place. Like, we're like, who is she texting? Like, what is going on with Janelle, you know? And it's, the great thing is, unlike with season 1, we don't have to wait to the season finale to find out what's going on with her. But yeah, she's kind of still in that same vein of like, not being very vocal or open about what's going on with her internally, and more so just focusing up, showing up for other people, you know. But yeah, as we get through the season, we'll finally see her let down that wall a little bit, and I'm excited.
Me too. And one thing I love about her is her ability to persevere through so much with such ease and grace. Why do you think that's something that she's able to do so beautifully?
Well, one, she a Black woman, okay?
Okay.
that's just who we are. We are resilient, you know, we are fighters and we are overcomers. And Janelle, you know, she's just someone who is so, she's just so curious about life, hence her leaving all that she's known to go live in a whole nother country for 5 years. That takes a lot of bravery to do that, you know? And I believe, you know, who she was raised by, Mama Nancy, okay? Mama Nancy's a strong woman herself, and being raised in that kind of environment of culture and knowing who you are and being bold in who you are has definitely helped to shape who she is and how she maneuvers in her life and with other people, you know, and just wanting to make sure that she's giving all that strength that she has, that she's also making sure that she's able to uplift other people in the same vein.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm sure that you've probably learned a lot of life lessons through bringing her to life. So what has been the biggest thing that she's taught you about finding joy no matter the situation?
Oh my goodness. Well, something I love so much, because Janelle and I parallel in so many ways. And I am someone who is joy. Yes, she says. So, you know, playing joy is not really something I have to do, because it just comes natural to my spirit. And Janelle, being someone who is very spiritual and very in tune with herself and her surroundings, it was amazing to kind of just let that naturally flow through her. And I think too, again, going back to her resilience, it's like one of those things, you either have one or two options. When life hits you hard, you either fold and give up, or you make the choice to be like, I'm going to press forward. And as you're pressing forward, you know, hopefully within that, you remember why you're doing what you're doing. And in that comes the joy, you know, the joy of survival, the joy of overcoming, and also the joy of helping other people, you know, like that's something she does. She shows up for everyone around her. And I believe that that's also a center of her joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just my last question for you is, you mentioned pressing forward. And one thing about Blindspotting, it really brings to light what so many families that are impacted by incarceration have to deal with. Why is a story like Blindspotting so important for those at home that are watching?
It's important because the conversation needs to happen, right? We are definitely telling a story about how people of color are being affected by the inequalities within the judicial system. And I think that us expressing it the way that we are, like through comedy and stuff. It's kind of like we're inviting you in to just sit at the table and let's just talk about it, you know? And hopefully through conversation comes awareness, and hopefully with that that awareness, we can incite change, you know? So I think that as people continue to watch the show, as they continue to fall in love with all these multifaceted characters, that hopefully that makes them feel at ease to be like, okay, we see that this is an issue. So we love these people. This is an issue that they're struggling with. Okay, how can I help? How can I make it better? Like, how can I be a part of the change?
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Candace. You're doing amazing in the series. So just continued success to you.
Thank you, Shanice.
I want to know, where would you say we find your character Earl at the beginning of the season 2 versus where we're going to meet him at the end?
I think we find Earl trying to really navigate what it means to have confronted his worst fear. At the end of season 1, that's where we find him. And at the beginning of season 2, he's dealing with the implications of having to have dealt with his worst fear, the very thing he didn't want to deal with. And I think by the end of the season, we really see how that interaction between his worst fear and himself transforms him. I think that's where we sort of find him at the end of the season.
Absolutely. And how would you say your own life experience helped you to bring this character to life?
I think more than anything, my own life experience sort of was the thing that could get in the way. And so just as a performer and trying to be the actor I want to be, it was sort of like, okay, how can I get out of the way of a character that needs different things than what I might naturally want to bring?
Yeah, and speaking of those different things, in what ways will we see any other layers of Earl get peeled back in the season 2?
We get to see Earl a little bit more. We get to see him in love, and we get to see him around more familiar faces to him. I think in the first season, he's around all strangers, and so there's no context for Earl. From Earl's point of view, he doesn't know any of these people, and that changes in season 2. He's around people he knows a bit more, and that I think shows us more of who Earl is.
Yeah, and then also I wanted to know, if you had to summarize season 2 of Blindspotting, and whether that's a sentence or a word, what would you use?
Blindspotting in a sentence, it's I don't know. I think it's sort of it's a chaos and harmony. I think that it's the paradox, right? It's like, these terrible things are happening, let's laugh. This hilarious thing is happening, oh how sad. This really bland normal moment is happening, wow, look at how artistic that is. This amazing artistic moment is happening, wow, look how silly that face is, how normal that is. And I think we liked the paradox, and we wanted to just sort of ground the show in that.
Yeah, and then just lastly, you spoke about just the artistic part of the series. How were you able to bring your background to the forefront, and what has that been like for you?
My show creators and producers are the best in the biz as far as I'm concerned, partly because they take into account the things that their actors do and the people they participate do across all of their life. So I grew up doing spoken word, I grew up writing, I grew up performing and rapping, and I still do many of those things. And so their willingness to incorporate, Rafael, Casal, David Diggs, Keith and Jess Calder, I think they all saw the vision. They said, wow, we have actors who can do a lot. Let's actually let them do what they do. And that's really what it was. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I love seeing you shine in the series. So thank you for your time today.
Of course. Thank you.